SOFR refers to the Secured Overnight Financing Rate. It is administered by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. It was created in April of 2018, and it has now been designated by the Alternative Reference Rate Committee, or the ARC, to be the successor rate to US dollar LIBOR once that is no longer available at the end of 2021. In the US loan market, we have now seen several examples of transactions that have been based on SOFR rather than LIBOR. However, those are still very much in the minority, and the vast majority of transactions in the US loan market are still being based on LIBOR.
In the US bond market, the main trends affecting SOFR are actually, I think, quite interesting because SOFR is only actually used in a floating rate instrument. So that would typically be in a bank loan. And so actually in the US bond market, floating rate notes are not actually that common as compared to in the European bond market. To amend a bond instrument, it is usually quite involved. It involves a solicitation to all the holders to change the terms, and then also involves some cost to the issuer because you need to effectively put a notice through the clearing systems and involve lawyers and other agents in the process. It also generally takes usually a minimum of 10 days to leave the consent open for people to consider the consent, depending on some market dynamics. And you often have to pay people to pay the holders for their attention at looking at a change. And so actually amending that rate could be quite complicated. So what will be interesting, I think, with holders of notes that don't have appropriate fallback provisions that just effectively default to the previous rate, which is probably the majority of the bonds out there right now that were issued and are still outstanding. I think you'll be left with a lot of issuers saying, what is the cost benefit here? Is it worth it for me to do a consent solicitation and go through this process? Or am I okay with this rate, or am I confident enough that I'll just refinance out of it in the next couple of months? So I actually think, when the rates disappear or the base rates disappear and we're in various issuers are in this boat, I actually don't think we'll see a big wave of consent solicitations. I think a lot of issuers will just look at it and say, actually, I'm just going to refinance out of this anyway. And I was never intending to be in this instrument for very long.
One of the key challenges in dealing with the transition to SOFR is driven by the fact that LIBOR is inherently a forward-looking term rate, and SOFR is backwards-looking. There is the possibility of developing a forward-looking term rate for SOFR itself. And if that were available, it would mimic LIBOR in terms of being able to get a SOFR rate for a forward-looking period on any given day. However, as of early 2020, there is no SOFR term rate that has been developed as of yet, and it's not expected that one would be available before the latter part of 2021.
In the U.S. loan market, there has been near universal acceptance that fallback language needs to be included within all loan agreements in the loan market. This will ensure an orderly ability to replace LIBOR when the time comes, regardless of what the replacement rate will be. The fallback language acts to allow for amendments to be made to loan agreements in order to adopt the replacement rate for LIBOR.
One of the other main challenges with the SOFR transition is dealing with the so-called spread adjustment. On any given day, it's likely that SOFR will be a lower rate than LIBOR. So to address that, the Alternative Reference Rate Committee, or the ARC, has suggested that as part of the transition to SOFR, there will need to be included a spread adjustment, i.e. an increase above the SOFR rate, which is designed to put lenders in a no worse a position than they would be in had LIBOR continued to exist. At some point during the course of 2020, ARC will release more definitive guidance around what the spread adjustment will look like, and that is one area that we expect loan market participants to follow very closely.
Most of the people we have spoken to within the market have taken the view that once there is a definitive decision on the replacement for US dollar LIBOR, be it SOFR or another rate, SOFR does seem to have the most support behind it at the moment, that the market will then need to come together to determine how that will mechanically be implemented within loan agreements in the US market.